Okay, here we are. As everyone knows, we've been watching The Bachelor, season 25 together. Suge, um, episode 5, right? So what's going on with what happened in episode 5?
Yeah, so then it started off this week. It started off where the last episode ended, where Yesenia and MJ were kind of like in a, he was gonna talk to each of them like individually and figure out who was telling the truth about like the whole mean girl dynamic that was going on in the house, and because basically Yesenia was accusing MJ of that, and like it was just they kind of had like this talk about like weak bitch energy, and from MJ's standpoint it was like not like tearing another girl down, like basically like snitching on them to make them look bad to Matt, and then like to Yesenia it was weak bitch energy was just not telling the truth. But at the end of that, MJ ended up getting sent home, so prayers up for my boy Mike over here because I was his favorite.
Uh, Not personality wise, but just that's how I like it.
And then MJ felt that Yesenia had sabotaged her. That's what they talk about. When they showed him in the car ride back home. Um, showed him in the back of the Jeep, the SUV, like crying, and she was like, Yesenia had sabotaged her. Then Serena C got at my favorite, Casey, and accusing her of being like the center of drama. And, perhaps, she's usually the one that brings up like, the toxic behavior of the house. And they immediately went to the rose ceremony. They usually have like this cocktail party, but they went straight to the rose ceremony. And the one girl, Ryan, who she was part of like the five new girls that came on like two episodes before this, and she was kind of like crying, and like she was like, I'm scared, I'm going home. Like I didn't really get to know him, and I just thought like it was a bit much. Like you've only been there for like a week, so like calm down. Like all right, you didn't get to make that impression. Like maybe it's not that into you, and you didn't get to because if he was that into you, he would have made the time. One with then with like Katie, being accused of being like the son of the drama. Like I can understand where she was coming from, because the reason why she brought the thing up to Matt was because when the one girl, I forgot her name now, when she had to go back home, she decided to leave. Victoria and like the other girls on the show were kind of like bad talking her, and like if like I could understand it, because I'm like I've always been told if like people could talk bad about other people um while you're around, like they'll most likely talk bad about you while you're not around. So I think she tried to get in front of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of people like that are also very reactionary. So, like, that's the whole point of that. So,
And then this a girl Heather, who was on a previous season of The Bachelor. I guess she became friends with like the former Bachelorette, Hannah,
yeah,
and
yep.
Hannah had told her that Matt was like her perfect match. So she took it upon herself to pull up in like a Dodge Caravan, which is a weird choice of like car. Not because like I was expecting her to roll up in like a luxury car, but why is like a woman who's driving like by herself with like maybe like a suitcase, like one suitcase? Why is she driving a minivan? It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah. Well, if I could be the little guy to pop in, that felt like a very produced, like, let's start some shit. you know,
Yeah, but like,
because you know, yeah. So I
and
don't.
she didn't, she pulled up and she wasn't wearing, like, it was a weird like, it was a weird picture because like Chris Harrison pulled up to the gate with like the camera crew who were, and he had on a mask. They all had on masks, and then like the security guy who's at like the gate, he had on a mask, and like she pulls up with like no mask, and then like, Chris is like, oh, this is a surprise. They didn't bring it up, but me as a viewer, I'm watching. I'm like, yo, like all of these girls have to like quarantine and do all of this stuff, and like obviously the show itself is taking like the pandemic seriously, and then to have this chick pull up and she doesn't have like a mask on, I'm like, I already don't like you. But it's a weird scene because he did tell her, he was like, all right, even if we do let you on the show, like it's not gonna be today. It's not gonna be today. You're gonna have to quarantine for like a week or whatever it is, and then you'll come on. Um just a random note. Piper, she's hot to me. Even if I didn't have like shit in common with
No,
her,
sir.
even if I didn't have anything
No,
in
sir.
common with her, I would I would try to like, and I was the bachelor, I would try to get to know her regardless. So I get why he went out of his way to like make her one of his individual dates for the show. Um and then at the end of their date, they saw like some kind of like performance. Uh and it was like a country artist, and it was just weird to see like this black guy and this black girl like being entertained by like country. But that's something I'm gonna bring up later. Like maybe it could have been a
Yeah.
maybe it could have been an R&B group, and then they went bowling, and then
Oh,
random observation. Matt pulled up wearing like the Charlie Sheen from Two and a Half Men, like his shirt, like that he would always wore, because they went bowling, and it's like a bowling shirt.
that's
And
right.
this is what kind of got me angry. His second individual date was Katie, who of course is my favorite. I've said if I was on a show, she would have won. Um, but he sent her home. Like it was the first, date. They have these dates where he gives them the rose, and he's like, "All right, like I'm gonna give you this rose." But he was like, "Nah, I'm gonna keep this rose, and I want you to go." And like she left. Like he sent her home, and I was just like, "He's a bozo." She could do better. Anyway, that was like my first reaction. I think this was like the first episode that had me feeling like emotions. Like I was like angry, sad, but I'm gonna get to why I was angry later on. And I was just thinking, I was like, man, like me and Mike's crushes are gone now. So I guess we could be, if we're gonna continue doing this thing, we could be objective now. And the whole episode arc, to me, it seemed like Matt's heel turn. And I had to take a quote when I talk about Matt. I had to take a quote from one of my favorite TV characters from one of my least favorite TV shows, Frank Costanza. And that quote is, I know E, no ah, Shio. This guy, he's not my kind of guy. Like that's what I that, that's the conclusion. I was like, this guy is not my kind of guy.
Wait,
Like I just
for your for your least favorite show, man, that's the best. That is the best reference.
uh,
That's great.
this guy is not my kind of guy. Like I've been
This
saying that
guy is.
I've been saying that for years, even though I'm not a fan of Seinfeld. But yeah, like this guy is not my kind of guy. It's a phrase that resonates with me because I meet a lot of people who that guy
Yeah,
ain't
he's
my
a
kind of
vibe.
guy. Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, Mike, talk about some anything because I know you didn't get to watch. So anything there you wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, like I watched the clips. Be honest with you, long week. I watched the clips. I kind of like get clouded over with other things that the other controversy and stuff. But for the pure, I love. I talk a lot, but for the actual show for the Bachelor, yeah, I was disappointed that that my one of the girls. It would have been nice to see her keep going on, but no, it's not gonna happen. Um, it's just sad because there's always this controversy with there's always literally every year since 2007 anything I watch that are like major thing. It's always going to be controversy, and it's I
Yeah,
don't know.
well,
I have nothing to say about it.
anything about like the happenings of the episode interests you, or you want to talk about before we get into the off the show stuff, off TV,
I'll
off
think of
air
stuff.
stuff?
No, not really. I can't go into a. I can't do a. I would do a whole bit. I can't do a whole bit.
Okay.
It's
As we said last week, Rachel, a lot of people I knew her in high school, and also people I knew her in college. It came out that she did a lot of like racially insensitive stuff, picking on girls because they dated black guys, which is ironic, being that she is a contestant on a show where the prize is being getting engaged to a black guy, and then also some inappropriate costumes, like dressing up in like a Native American costume for Halloween, stuff like that. And she finally came out and apologized. Did the cliche cliche iPhone note pad note, um apologizing for the shit now that it's come to light. And Chris Harrison actually had to apologize on, I think it was Rachel Lindsay, who was the first black Bachelorette. I guess she has like a podcast or some kind of show now, um, that he appeared on, and he was saying like, we should give them some kind of like grace and try to like give her the
yeah,
time to like explain or whatever. And I just think, and it's weird. I think he actually like policed himself because I think it's inappropriate to hear from a white guy like, all right, like like let's not jump to conclusions on like her racism. So he kind of like policed himself. He was like, you know what, nah, like I have to apologize for that because it's not my place to do that. But the thing with Rachel, I just found it weird that it's just like you've you knew you did these things. You applied to be on the show, auditioned for the show, uh, went through the whole process of being selected to the show. Like, why did it take you getting to episode 5 or 4 at the time? And basically, the word around the internet is that she's like she's the person that's eventually gonna win this thing. Why did it take all of that for you to apologize? Like, why not jump out in front of it? Like, if it's really like, if you want me as a black person, to find it, um, as a sincere gesture that you're apologizing, it would have came a lot sooner. It wouldn't have came after these people I knew you brought it to light because you knew what you did and you knew what you did was wrong. And especially if you're in this relationship now with this black man, which is a whole nother thing I'm about to get into. Um, why don't you like apologize before? Like apologize before the show started. If anything, maybe that would have had people rooting for you because you would have been like, oh, all right, like, oh, that's that girl. Like she learned from her mistakes, blah blah blah. Like, no, it's like I don't even think you learned from your mistakes. You just got caught.
yeah. I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, I was thinking about like if you dox me right now, if you dox me right now, like you actually find like not like a tweet, but maybe like an actual relationship I had with someone. Oh, they happen to be, someone else, different race, whatever. But you know, Maybe I was an asshole. I wasn't right. It's a back in the actual interaction with someone. So I'm always wondering, like with like doxing and stuff and all that. Yeah. So like um, I feel like everyone is always trying to either say say something about oh no, I'm not this or I'm not that, and then someone else shows like a tweet or whatever, and if you jump in front of it, then everyone's going to just go back way deep into your other stuff if you have a history. And if you're on Bachelor, yeah, you have a history. You're going to be looking,
So it'll be interesting to
makes sense.
see, um, eventually if she's the person that gets picked and eventually she'd be married or engaged to this black man, if like maybe she'll expand on that a little bit more. And she did talk about like her parents or being raised in that way. So if like that's Matt's future in-laws, he should look into that. But speaking of Matt, this episode, not only for like his, him sending home Katie and stuff like that, that kind of like pissed me off. And I'm gonna preface this, and I'm not gonna say like Matt is any less like I'm any more black than he is, and he's any less black than I am. I'm pretty sure if you know me and him got pulled over by the cops, we'd probably have the same experience, which would probably not be a good one. And I'm pretty sure he's had as many racist incidents happening to him in his life as much as me, if not more, because he's from the South. Raised here in New York, but New York can be racist. I've said that on several occasions on this show. It's just they do a lot better job of covering it up. But I realized this episode, I was thinking to myself, like, first of all, the first red flag to me was again not country music performance. I'm just like, why wasn't that like a R&B or like black performers on the show? Because like so far, the only black people I've seen on the show, the only black man I've seen on the show is Matt. The only black women, obviously, are the contestants, who a good amount of them are actually like gone now. And I'm like, man, like, I was watching that shit. I was like, can I get like an R&B performance? Like this was like an episode of New York Undercover. Like if you remember New York Undercover back in the day when they used to have like Mary J. Blige or some shit on there, like like can I get like
Yeah.
a Brent Fires or Sir or somebody like one of them people like performing? I would have been fly. And my question is like, why does he only have white friends? Like his best friend, who's his roommate, came on the show, and I think he was like like an ex Bachelorette contestant, and he was like a white guy. He's like, "This is my
Oh yeah. Yeah.
brother," blah 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 blah. And then a couple weeks ago, I can't remember if that was his friend or they just brought him on because he was a former bachelor. But the one guy a couple weeks ago, I'm like, he was white, but obviously like all of the bachelors were white. So if you're gonna have him talk to another bachelor, they would be white. But I don't know if they were friends.
Mm.
Only family member of his that they showed was his mom, who was white. And it's like even if like he's estranged from his father, like they showed pictures of his dad, so he knows who his dad is. And they also said he had a brother, so he's black. Why not have him on the show? Or any of his father's like family members? Why weren't they on the show? And it's like, did they did they just pick like the safe Negro? Like to me, I think, and that's where I feel insulted because we talk about representation. Like I feel insulted because I feel
Mm.
like they picked. It's like, oh, this is the first black bachelor, and then in fine print, it's like, yeah, but he's like basically a white guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd have preferred like, why couldn't you have like an actual like brother on there, like actual like black guy, like because it ain't even like they did some kind of like nationwide search. They just picked him because he was that one guy's roommate, the one that they had on the episode this week. So I just feel like
Uh,
I hate that bait and switch. I think I talked about it before with that real world where I'm like they
hmm,
never really show the black guys doing anything. So I always used to watch and try to find like the black guy I could relate to. And I'm like, they never showed a black guy hooking up. The only time they ever showed a black guy doing something is when he's in conflict with one of the white people that he lives with. Something that Dave Chappelle did on
David.
yeah. Um
David. Do you
yeah,
remember David from the
yeah.
early 90s?
Yeah, so like I'm saying, that's the only
Hmm.
time they would show them. Like they would show the only time they would show
Oh,
them
David.
doing something is when they are in conflict with the white housemates.
Yeah.
Like they would never show
Oh,
them hooking up. They wouldn't show them like doing stuff. Like they would only show them in that light. Like oh, like let's get him while he's aggressive. So I always used to watch the Real World as a fan of the Real World for many years. I always used to tune in and be disappointed by like the lack of attention like the one black guy got. And then the one year they actually do give the black guy attention, it comes out like he's gay. And I'm like, all right, so now you're gonna show him hooking up and doing all that shit. But like you couldn't show a straight black man just being him. And like that's what I said, like with this Black Bachelor shit, I'm just like, this is really disingenuous. And the thought like crossed my mind. I want to hear your idea on this, Mike. The same way like they have American Idol on, it used to be Fox, now it's ABC, and then they created like America's Got Talent or The Voice or the stuff like that, like the different like offshoots or the different like alternatives to the Idol, and I'm just like, why don't one of these other networks, NBC, CBS, Fox, even the CW, like why don't you create an alternative to The Bachelor where like you could put a brother on there and he could actually be a brother, and he's not like some brother that is like, oh, like he's white people friendly. And that's what I feel like they did with Matt. Like no offense to Matt, like he seems like a nice guy. I'm not trying to shit on him. I'm just saying like I feel like I was fleeced into watching this show.
all right. Well, I will try to do my best. But the last thing you said, I think it's like them slowly. Hey, he's safe. This guy's safe. Hey, Shug, he's safe. Hey, like it's kind of like kind of like the whole thing with like, country music. Okay, we're gonna push it into you kind of slowly, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Where it's like, whoa, not at once. Oh yeah, I'm very liberal. I'm very liberal.
My first reaction when I was
Why?
watching that and I came to that realization, at the end of the episode, I was like, like them choosing Matt and Matt's whole personality and his vibe, like to me, it's just like this is only slightly less offensive than if they just had like a white dude on there in blackface. Like honestly, that was my first reaction. It might have been extreme, and that's why like I'm glad we had some days in between me watching it and me like putting my thoughts and my notes together, because like I don't want to like I'm not trying to shit on Matt, and I'm not trying to say like I said I don't think he's any less black than me. I'm thinking this is my idea. He's probably raised mainly by his mom, who is white. Probably spent a majority of his time with his family, with her family, who's white, and probably grew up with friends who were all white. And that's why he's the way he is. And it's just like the episode of Fresh Prince where that one dude, when they were trying to get into that black fraternity, and that dude was like, "Oh, Carlton, he ain't even black." Da, 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 da. And like that was the whole point of the episode. I'm not trying to like shit on him. I'm just saying now, like Mike, I guess you was trying to like kind of suggest is that maybe they were trying to like ease people in to the idea of having like a bachelor that wasn't white. Perhaps my thing is if you're gonna do things, you don't do things like half-hearted. If you're gonna have the first Black Bachelor, like dude should be fucking black. Like if he was me, look at it this way. I ain't saying like, oh my god, like bro should have like a whole fucking like family reunion on the shit, and then have the contestants being like basically like dissected by his family, like verbally or whatever, or interrogated by his family. No, I'm just saying, like, why couldn't they just have like a brother? Like, if you had like somebody like me, right, Mike, you're a friend of mine, you're white. So one episode we would have had you on there, right? But a couple episodes after that, they would have my homeboy, they would have like my boy Shane on there. He's black. A couple episodes after that, you could have had Joel on there. He's black and Latino. So I would have had like this diverse group of friends. But to have this guy, it's like everybody, he's the only black person. He's the Black Bachelor, but he's literally the only black man that I'm seeing on my screen. Every other person that comes in here, your host is white. No offense, Chris Harrison. His whole family,
Oh,
his mom is white. She comes on the show. The two other male people that he's like talking to, they're white, and I'm just like, all right, like this is not the first Black Bachelor. This is the first black guy. This is the first person that happens to be African American. That's a bachelor. Like I don't know,
oh.
because I wouldn't be surprised if the next bachelor after this is a white guy. Like, and you don't never see another black bachelor for years. But I think on this first go around, I definitely feel like I was like hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok.